I found her $2 million secret office hidden in our nursery. I pressed play on my daughter's smart teddy, expecting twinkle twinkle and emotional blackmail to sleep. Instead, I heard my wife pitching my $2 million software to a rival over our baby's bedtime. The bear's little LED blinked like, "Sir, do you require a transcript?" I paused the universe. Marriage, audited. Funding, about to be freezer burned. Gala, rip. Me? I kept the company and, yes, the narc bear. Rewind. 30 seconds, I promise. I'm a boring engineer with spicy commas in my code comments. She's a marketing strategist, which, apparently, means whispering NDAs into stuffed animals. Acquisition talks were hot, NDAs were stacked taller than our diaper pail, and the nursery toy decided to moonlight as an auditor, bigger than cheating. Corporate theft narrated by lullabies. Here's how a cuddle bear became my compliance department, my therapist, and my tiny judgmental auditor. Spoiler, his billable hours are insane. Perfect life, tiny glitches. From the outside, we looked stable. I built fault-tolerant architecture. She built brand moments, which I think are slides with adjectives. Baby slept like she'd signed a strict union contract. Bills paid, smiles posted. Everything beige and shiny, and tiny glitches. Our baby monitor chirped like R2-D2 had a sinus infection. The teddy synced at 2:13 a.m. 3 nights in a row. She said, "Firmware, babe," with that tone people use when they're lying and also exfoliated. A second phone appeared, allegedly a backup, but it never backed anything up, unless you count her personality during late-night patio whispers. She called for Budget Titan the same week my acquisition talks lit up. Suddenly, "Let's be lean" translated to "Let's move shared resources to a new safety drive," which pinged my spidey sysadmin sense. Nursery routines started feeling scripted. Bedtime hums sounded suspiciously like pitch cadence. I know cadence. I used to date cadence. She'd tuck our daughter in, then whisper about runway and activation like she was reading a ransom note to a venture capitalist. The teddy blinked on time, every time, like a tiny stenographer in a fur coat. I told myself I was paranoid. Then the second phone vibrated inside the diaper bag at exactly the same minute our router traffic spiked. Fun coincidence, right? Like finding a ski mask in your glove compartment. I went Diaper Bag Detective wipes, tiny socks, and a phone named Wellness. Wellness apparently needs two-factor authentication and a seat at the board meeting. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Totally," she said, smiling the way people smile before a heist. Then the teddy started uploading bedtime secrets. If your baby's plush decides to unionize with compliance, you either listen or you get regulated by Hasbro. The nursery Snitch speaks. I opened the Teddy's app because I'm a modern dad with subscriptions to noise machines and shame. The dashboard showed cloud voice notes I definitely didn't record. First playback, a lullaby under my architecture buzzwords. It was like if a podcast about disaster recovery got produced by Baby Einstein. Rude and oddly well mixed. "Failover nodes, phased cutover, 2 million runway," she whispered, like she was coaxing the NAS to sleep. Meanwhile, the bear's LED pulsed in tempo. The metadata? Chef's kiss. Timestamps aligned with her calendar blocks labeled "Late Night Strategy," also known as "Don't Ask." Then I got a 2FA ping from a shared voice service that had my number as the backup bouncer. "Hello, audit. My kid's bear just did more compliance than our council." I stared into its plush eyes. "Are you my auditor?" It blinked twice. That's a yes in bear. I put on the white coat of curiosity and built a checklist no one asked for. Time, phrase, location, and a dumb joke column, because that's how I metabolize betrayal. Night after night, the toys' uploads lined up with work dinners labeled "Wellness" on receipts. Meanwhile, I found a brand new LLC named after her favorite mantra, "Glow Rich." Nothing glows like intellectual property theft under nursery lighting. Contractors started ghosting me. Then I found NDAs in my former freelancers' inboxes, my clause order, my Oxford commas, my weirdo hyphenation rules. She'd copied my legal voice but kept the commas because even thieves respect rhythm. She relocated shared resources into a private drive for safety, which is what raccoons say about your trash. I went full Diaper Bag Detective again. The second phone chirped in the pocket next to a giraffe teether. I clicked its case like I was opening a tiny briefcase. Screensaver. Breathe. Ma'am, you are not breathing. Router logs didn't lie. Nightly spikes exactly when the nursery light was on. The Teddy's firmware notes described ambient moments capture. Translation: hot mic with plush. The toy server IP mapped to a third-party voice platform. Account owner? An alias of her favorite quote. Of course. The app cache had waveforms neatly labeled briefing, Gala run, VC Q&A, and nursery is the perfect war room, which is a sentence that makes the FBI want to put you on hold forever. I mirrored the toy's cloud vault to a cold drive. No edits, just copy. Then I listened to everything. Her voice sold my failover like she invented electricity and apologized to Edison. She sprinkled my proprietary examples like Parmesan over a crime. Each clip had a little coup from our daughter, the acoustic equivalent of a morality siren, and then my wife promising we'll replace him in 2 quarters. I choked on air politely. I requested a full data export, device IDs, IP logs, alias emails. The overlap with our house was embarrassing. Slide decks mirrored my style guide so closely that one slide had my favorite comment bubble: move 2 pixels left. She even stole my pixels. Criminal and rude. The rival CEO's calendar, thank you, public ICS feeds, overlapped with Teddy uploads and her coaching. I wrote a new column titled Narrated by Fur. It filled fast. Time for a clean canary. I made a harmless code change disguised as template clutter. One character that would never affect prod, just vanity lint bait. I dropped it into the shared folder she peeked from habit. 36 hours later, the exact harmless bug appeared in her beta logs. I almost sent the bear a bonus. Then I watermarked a policy doc with a unique punctuation pattern only a sleep-deprived editor would spot. It reappeared in her deck verbatim. Screenshots, hashes, timestamps, boring bullets with sharp tips. I notarized an affidavit. I created X on Y, observed Z. The clerk asked if I was okay. Define okay? I said, and my Teddy blinked in my pocket like a pager from compliance heaven. Locks and letters next. I froze draws, slapped dual auth everywhere, and set alerts so aggressive our toaster was nervous. Preservation letters went to her LLC, the rival, and hosting. Polite, terrifying. I sent investors a memo. Risk summary, provenance, compliance gaps. No adjectives, all teeth. I scheduled the reveal before her gala. Not for public humiliation, for adults with checkbooks. Before that, I needed the Teddy's greatest hits. I compiled a best of reel, lullaby under stolen pitch lines. Grammy for chaos. Our daughter babbled. My wife said my client's CISO by first and last name. He'll jump when the bonus hits, she purred. Then the canary line rolled through, the one only I wrote. The bear mixed better audio than half of YouTube. I named the file Night Night Venture. Then I called the money. Calm walkthrough. Clause origin versus her deck. Ask nothing but audit. Use your rights. Investors replied. Device surrender post keynote. Funding hold primed. I ate salad at home like a man who loves chlorophyll and revenge. Gala day incoming. Confetti and consequences. The bear wore a bow tie in my mind. Red flags stacked tall. Work dinners started syncing perfectly with Teddy uploads like they shared a Google Calendar and a therapist. Every time she texted, late meeting, don't wait up, the bear fired up GarageBand for crime and dropped a fresh track named something like Beta Demo, but soft. Receipts hit my inbox labeled Wellness, which is interesting because wellness apparently includes tapas for 6 and a flight of mocktails that cost more than our stroller. I opened a spreadsheet called Wellness My Foot and started tagging nights, timestamps, and how much the bear judged me from the shelf. Then the LLC popped. Glow Ridge, LLC. Registered under a family trust with a name that sounded like a candle you light when you've stolen IP and want the room to smell like plausible deniability. The registered agent sat in a strip mall between a notary and a cryotherapy place named Ice Feelings, which felt on brand for how my chest behaved. My contractor started ghosting me with the energy of people who suddenly discovered boundless hiking. I found out why when one of them accidentally forwarded me an onboarding packet. My clause order, my Oxford commas, my weird hyphenation, showing up in NDAs from an HR alias that was one character off my domain. She didn't just steal my people, she stole my punctuation. That's identity theft in my house. She began consolidating shared resources into a private drive for safety, which is raccoon for your trash is my treasure. I asked what exactly we were protecting from. She said, chaos. I said, cool. Have you met our life? I added a dumb jokes column to survive my own spreadsheet. Row 14. If your wife builds a rival company in your nursery, does the IRS give you a dependent? Row 15. Teddy bear auditor now bills at partner rate. Router logs turned into bedtime stories. Nightly Spikes wore little top hats precisely when the nursery light flicked on. The Teddy's firmware described ambient moments capture, which is legalese for we hot mic'd your life and gave it a hug. The toy's server IP resolved to a legit voice platform, account under her alias, one she uses whenever she's about to introduce herself to consequences. I pulled the receipt pile. Wellness included a co-working day pass, a floral backdrop rental, and a pitch rehearsal grazing board, which is just charcuterie for ideas you didn't have. A single sticky note sat in the stack. Remember to smile when you say provenance. I smiled. She did not mean me. The diaper bag, a lawless nation, kept snitching. Inside, teether, wipes, second phone named Wellness, and a tiny planner with embossed gold letters that read, dreams don't work unless you do. I muttered, dreams don't work unless you plagiarize. Then immediately apologized to the giraffe, who did not deserve that smoke. The pattern grew loud. Work dinners mapped to toy uploads. Receipts labeled wellness matched transcripts saying beta demos. The LLC matched contractor NDAs with my grammatical fingerprints. She moved assets into a private drive the way a squirrel moves shame. Meanwhile, calendar invites titled Late Night Strategy stacked neatly beside my router's nighttime jazz performance. I started a log that looked like a crime novel written by Excel. Date, Teddy file name, alleged event, actual event, dollar amount. Why God? I color-coded anything with food because I'm petty. Orange for tapas, purple for cocktails. Red for the night, she said yoga, and the bear recorded unit economics. Then came the keynote rehearsal in our kitchen, because why not rehearse felony-adjacent enthusiasm within 6 feet of a Cheerios spill? She practiced, we built this from scratch, and the bear, miles away on his shelf, blinked like, perjury? In this economy? She followed with, our unique approach to failover, and I felt my soul check the timestamps. A freelancer pinged me at 11:07 p.m. with quick question and attached a style guide lifted from my private repo, down to my caption casing. My eye twitched in lowercase. She pivoted to speed. I'm cleaning old folders, she said, dragging and dropping shared resources like she was playing Battleship with my patience. I watched file by file scoot into safety. I imagined the folder wearing sunglasses and refusing to answer questions without counsel. The crescendo, a calendar event labeled Investor Coffee, Glow Ridge, set for the same morning as a toddler music circle. The Teddy took notes to wheels on the bus. Clip name, Risk Mitigation Slide. I sat on the floor in front of the crib, bear in my lap like a furry stenographer, and said out loud, okay, it's not a vibe, it's a workflow. So I marked the last row in my log threshold crossed and gave it a bold border, because if Betrayal is going to pretend to be organized, I'm going to format it. Then I put the bear back on the shelf, looked him in his unblinking LED soul, and said, congratulations, your staff. He blinked twice. I wrote that down too. Digital detective mode, phase 1. I treated the house like a crime scene and myself like a detective who bills in snack breaks. First stop, the router admin page, which is basically a diary for electricity. Nightly traffic spikes stacked up like Jenga blocks at 2:13 a.m., exactly when the nursery light clicked on. The graph looked guilty. I took screenshots with the same reverence people reserve for first steps and tax refunds. Next, I cracked the Teddy's firmware notes. Ambient moments capture, it said, like a mindfulness app for felonies. Translation, hot mic with fur. There was a hidden toggle called Capture Quality Studio. Excuse me? My child's plush came with better presets than my podcast mic. I turned nothing on. I just read. Then I nodded respectfully at the sentence, do not delete local cache during live sync, which is forensic poetry for we keep receipts. I mapped the toy's server IP, expecting a kitty cloud with ducks. Nope. Third-party voice platform. Professional. The account name? An alias built from her favorite motivational quote. I whispered the quote to the refrigerator. The refrigerator hummed back. Yikes. App cache rummage time. I found waveforms named like a crime mixtape. Briefing, wave, Gala run, wave, VCQA, wave. The file naming discipline impressed me and made me want to lie down. I exported everything to a cold drive that could survive a mild apocalypse and also my nerves. No edits, no rename, just copy. Chain of custody is my new love language. Then I did the miserable adult thing. I listened all the way through. She sold my failover design with the voice of someone who flirted with uptime. She sprinkled my edge case examples like confetti at a surprise party I didn't get invited to. Between lines, you could hear our daughter's tiny coos, a moral subwoofer under the treble of theft. That juxtaposition will haunt me and also probably fund my therapist's boat. Time to break out the magnifying glass. Data export request. I pulled device IDs, IP logs, alias emails. The overlap with our home network looked like a Venn diagram that forgot shame. I matched MAC addresses to the house, my laptop, the crib cam, the teddy, and her second phone labeled Wellness, which I started reading as Witness. The teddy blinked on the shelf like, we sync at dawn. Slide decks turned up in cache with my style guide all over them. My caption case, my spacing, my weird compulsion to put callouts in pale blue boxes so executives can feel friendly about facts. One slide still had my comment bubble, move 2 pickaxe left, living its best fugitive life. She didn't even move the bubble. I screenshotted it so hard my mouse squeaked. Calendar overlap was the next square in Betrayal bingo. The rival CEO's public ICS feed, yes, people still publish those, lined up neatly with Teddy uploads and her coaching sessions. Tuesday, Ops office hours. Teddy captured activation sequence. Thursday, investor coffee. Teddy captured unit economics and a tiny burp. I built a timeline that would make a prosecutor smile and a marriage weep. I dipped into the diaper bag again because I respect repeatable methodologies. The second phone chimed in the side pocket next to a packet of wipes and a graham cracker that had seen war. A text banner from a shared voice service read, Profile change verification. I held the bag like a sommelier. Notes of citrus, betrayal, and oat. Back to the router, I exported a full syslog to CSV and filtered for her device fingerprints. Spikes aligned to nursery light, state, on. The crib camera blinked like a witness in the corner. I thanked it and promised fresh firmware someday. I did not touch accounts I shouldn't. I did not guess passwords. Every step was akin to observing my own living room confess under fluorescent lights. If someone asked, how do you know? I could say, because the house and a stuffed animal agreed. Then, the firmware detail I didn't know I needed. Voice quality boost, beta. The bear had a compressor. Of course it did. When I played back a clip with it toggled on, her runway became ESPN commentary for crimes. I labeled the file, please let this be usable in court.wave and immediately renamed it. Ignore me, I am normal.pdf. Kidding. I'm reformed. I checked the Toys Companion site for account ownership breadcrumbs and hit gold. A support thread where her alias thanked the platform for seamless cross-device capture during Strategy Squish. Strategy Squish? I took psychic damage. I mirrored the Teddy's Cloud Vault again, this time capturing checksums for each file so no one could say I edited her vowels. I printed the hash list like a dad printing boarding passes in 2026. The printer spat the pages out with the energy of an accomplice seeking redemption. And then, because my pettiness needed cardio, I pulled house electricity usage. The nursery smart switch showed late-night cycles that matched the router's plot and the bear's uploads and my growing taste for plain yogurt and justice. 3 independent systems sang the same chorus, in key. Finally, I stood in the doorway of the nursery, hand on the whimpering baby monitor, looking at a plush auditor with untaxed confidence. You and me, I said. We're filing together. The bear's LED popped twice like a stamped form. I whispered, Phase 1 complete. Tucked the cold drive into a fire safe and put the diaper bag back where it belonged. Ready for wipes, snacks, and the next subpoena from fate. Digital detective mode. Phase 2. Phase 2 started when the diaper bag did a chirp at me like it had gossip. The second phone pinged with a 2FA code for a shared voice service, and because she had added my number as her emotional support bouncer, the text hit me, not her. I watched the code count down like a short film about hubris. I did not enter it. I let it wilt, like a houseplant in a bachelor apartment. I turned my phone sideways, CSI portrait mode, and requested formal data exports from every service that recognized me as trusted contact, device IDs, IP logs, alias emails. The returns lined up like a police lineup of software I pay for. The alias was her glow persona. The IPs belonged to our house, the co-working space, and one cell tower beside a wine bar named Mélange, which is French for "don't bring your marriage." Slide decks mirrored my style so precisely that one file name still carried my mistake. Pricing _V4 final _please. I could feel my own shame approving it months ago. I started whispering to the fridge. She stole my commas and my anxiety. The fridge hummed, supportive. Next, hashes in her beta notes matched fingerprints from my private repo. That's like catching your neighbor at your grill with your tongs, flipping your steak, and asking if you've tried salt. I leaned in. My punctuation was everywhere. She'd even kept my double M dash, which I deploy like a raccoon deploys chaos. Criminal and rude. I widened the map. Carrier app showed my number listed as shared verification for that voice platform, plus a brokerage I don't use, plus a collab calendar she does. Timeline matched the week she started Sunday recaps, and I started developing a yogurt habit. I filed a privacy data request with each vendor. Bless the laws written by people who hate passwords. 2 portals spat back masked emails, both hers. Device models, both predictable, and approval histories that looked like a marching band of yes, add him so he can't say I hid it. Another 2 FA text buzzed. Profile update. She was trying to cut me out mid-heist, like swapping license plates at a red light. I stared at the code until it died peacefully, surrounded by loved ones. Surprise is a coupon you can only scan once. I wasn't wasting it on hallway drama. Time for petty science. I planted a tiny test transfer. $1, the most disrespectful of bills, from our joint to the LLC that thinks candles absolve felonies. 2 minutes later, my phone chirped, profile access verified. So I was still the emergency contact for the emergency I was reporting. Neat. I pivoted to the rival. His calendar ICS was a buffet. I cross-referenced his coaching and office hours with our router spikes and Teddy uploads. I built a column called We All Met at 9:12 and filled it with timestamps and despair. Now the clean canary. Round 2. I tucked a different innocuous code change inside a dusty shared template she adored pilfering. Spacing that looked like I'd been interrupted by toddler chaos. I dropped a short policy blurb watermarked with a punctuation pattern only my sleep-deprived brain would generate. A tiny on dash where a hyphen should live. 36 hours later, her latest deck wore my on dash like jewelry. I screen recorded the before-after with hashes, slid the recording onto a cold drive, and wrote a certificate of boring. Observed origin, observed duplication, observed pattern persistence. If a judge could yawn while reading it, perfect. While I was in my museum of evidence, the diaper bag buzzed again. I fished the second phone out like a fisherman who also packs wipes, and a calendar banner popped. VC Q&A, Nursery quiet time. I laughed out loud in the hallway like a haunted Roomba. The bear blinked from the shelf. Same energy. Investors needed something crisp. I called 3 who love adjectives but obey nouns and read them a bedtime story. Clause origin here, duplicate there, timestamps wearing tuxes. I asked for nothing except process. Use your audit rights. They love rights. It's like telling a Labrador there's a tennis ball inside governance. Their replies came back brisk. Device surrender post keynote. Funding hold pending imaging. Thank you for your professionalism, which is rich, because my compliance consultant is a stuffed animal. I fortified the walls. Dual authorization everywhere, including the HELOC, the toaster, and possibly the plant. I rotated router creds, revoked guest network, and renamed Wi-Fi from Land of the Free to Try Me. I put our smart speaker on a bedtime routine called Goodnight House, which, when triggered, recites balances and last transfers in a voice that sounds like judgment. The first time it said last transfer to Glow Ridge $1, I saluted the ceiling fan. Then I wrote preservation letters. Polite, humorless, dreadful. Retain devices, logs, backups, and both versions of your conscience. Sent to her LLC, the rival, their hosting, and a barely related vendor for sport. Certified mail receipts showed up like tiny trophies. I pinned them to a corkboard because I'm dramatic in office supplies. Her phone vibrated face down. A flex emoji contact pinged. We still on? I pushed the phone back into the diaper bag like it was a live squirrel. Not my circus. My bear's circus. Final sweep. XI on a screenshot showed she captured my policy blurb at 1:07 a.m. under nursery light. The crib cam thumbnail reflected the glow of betrayal across a mobile with felt whales. I closed the laptop and sat on the carpet, back against the crib, arms around my knees like high school heartbreak, and told the bear, Phase 2 complete. He blinked twice. Partner-level confirmation. The house exhaled, the router breathed, and somewhere a fundraising deck felt colder. Confetti on standby. Gala next. Planting the canary. I needed a way to prove control without touching hot stuff, like a toddler pointing at the stove and saying, nope. Enter the canary. A harmless, uniquely silly change that only a thief would love enough to repeat. First, I opened a dust-coated shared template, the one she couldn't stop tidying. I added a microscopic vanity lint tweak, a single space before a brace that any linter would side-eye and my team would bully me for. I named the commit housekeeping, which is programmer for, please ignore this crime glitter. If my bugs showed up in her logs, game on. Next, I baked a second canary into a policy doc. I slid in my signature punctuation nonsense. An M dash where a hyphen belongs. An on dash where an M dash dreams. And one comma that could pass a polygraph. It read perfectly, but would light up in a diff tool like neon guilt. I watermarked the PDF with a ghost pattern, the white space equivalent of a DNA swab, and parked it in shared safety, a folder she peeked like a neighbor checking your grill. Then I set the table. I added a decoy, notes for VC file with 3 bullet points only. An insomniac engineer would write, provenance, availability, tiny whales mobile. I tucked the real bait 2 folders down, behind an old invoice named Final, for real. Archaeology for villains. I did not touch her accounts. I did not open her email. I sat very still and watched my house ratify my pettiness. The router blinked like it had tea. The bear stared like he was billing me by the minute. 36 hours. That's how long it took. Her beta logs coughed my harmless lint in a stack trace that read like poetry to bitter people. Unexpected token before brace. That's my gremlin. I fist bumped the fridge, which is a sentence my therapist will enjoy. An hour later, her deck published with my policy canary on slide 12. Same sentence, same weird on dash, same ghostly white space freckles. I ran a diff that sang like a choir of commas. The bear blinked twice. Partner level amen. I recorded everything like a boring magician. Screen capture with system time, file hashes overlaid, cursor movements slow enough for judges and grandparents. I narrated like a voicemail, observed origin in shared repo, observed appearance in Glow Ridge deck, pattern persistence confirmed. No adjectives. My taste for adjectives was repossessed when the teddy joined accounting. To strengthen the chain, I notarized an affidavit. I created X on Y, observed Z on T. The notary asked, do you swear? I said, professionally. She stamped it like a drum fill. I left feeling both ridiculous and extremely married to documentation. One more canary for dessert? I built a tiny code sample with a comment only I would write. Move to PCast left lolo. The lull is the tattoo. I tucked it into a reference snippet labeled for demo only because thieves love appetizers. I gave it a week. It showed up line for line in a coaching exercise with my comment preserved like a fossilized eye roll. I printed it and framed it mentally. Here's the fun part. I made all the canaries boring. No drama, no performance, just repeatable anomalies with receipts. If you bring a glitter bomb to a lab, the lab blames you for glitter. I brought dust and microscopes. While I waited, I prepped the So What folder for grown-ups with checkbooks. Exhibit A, commit diff with timestamp. Exhibit B, policy doc comparison with dotted watermark. Exhibit C, beta log stack trace wearing my lint. Exhibit D, the deck slide. Punctuation weirdness circled like a racetrack where honesty sprained an ankle. Each exhibit got a checksum, a capture description, and my new kink, integrity notes. I practiced saying provenance without sounding smug. Provenance is just who touched this and when. But if you pronounce it wrong at a boardroom, a guy named Trent corrects you and you lose custody of the snacks. Back home, I rewarded the bear with a respectful nod. You, sir, are the only auditor I'd let near a bottle. He blinked twice, the universal sign for billable. Finally, I planted the smallest, pettiest flag. I added a file to the shared folder titled Template Do Not Edit, which, as every engineer knows, is catnip. Inside was a single blank page with invisible characters arranged in my stupid piano roll pattern. She opened it. My logging saw it. She closed it. That's not theft. That's gravity checking the door. The canaries were in the pipes, singing softly. Not fireworks, thermostats clicking. When the adults came to listen, I didn't need a speech. I needed a pointer and a clock. And a plush auditor and a bow tie, obviously. Quiet prep, locks and letters. I decided rage was a dessert and paperwork was dinner, so I started with locks. Dual auth, everywhere. If a device could beep, it now asked me to prove I was me, then to show 2 forms of ID, then to recite my daughter's favorite snack in Pig Latin. Bank logins got hardware keys. Key lock? Dual authorization, so hard a latte needs board approval. I renamed the guest Wi-Fi from try me to no, really, try me. The toaster blinked like it suddenly respected me. Then came the alerts. I set thresholds so tiny that a $6 smoothie would trigger a siren from the ceiling fan. My phone became a judgment coach. Transaction pending. I'd whisper, with God? And the smart speaker would answer, insufficient data. The bear watched from the shelf like a furry CFO. Preservation letters next. Tone, polite librarian with a flamethrower in her tote. Please retain all devices, logs, backups, and communications related to Glow Ridge, onboarding, and any use of super adorable recording bears. I sent them certified to her LLC, to the rival, to their hosting provider, and to the co-working space front desk because dimensional chess is mostly pettiness with stamps. The USPS receipt stack looked like a tiny skyline of consequences. Investor memo time. No spice, all teeth. 1 page, bullet points, 0 adjectives. Observe clause origin here. Duplicate appears here. Canary persistence confirmed. Recommend device imaging and interim funding hold. I attached a tidy exhibit index like a charcuterie board of regret. The subject line was so boring, it did a crime. Portfolio risk, IP and compliance review. Adults love boring. It means someone else already cried. I booked the call. 10 minutes max, I promised. Translation: 10 minutes to turn trust into process. I closed the laptop and ate a heroic salad with the posture of a man who has never cried into romaine. While the letters floated through postal purgatory, I did a perimeter check. Router creds rotated, remote admin off, UPnP banished to the cornfield, smart plugs reset, guest network yeeted. Every mystery device booted like a shady cousin at Thanksgiving. I set the smart speaker bedtime routine to Goodnight House, which now read balances out loud like a bedtime indictment. Joint account, last transfer $1 to Glow Ridge. The bear blinked a tiny golf clap. I called the bank with my pleasant golden retriever voice. Household finance review, I purred. Could we place dual authorization on any line of credit so firm that the Pope cosigns? The rep laughed, then gave me a confirmation code that sounded like a personalized curse. I wrote it on a sticky note labeled Rituals. I staged a clean evidence shelf, cold drives, printed hash lists, notarized affidavits in a folder named Receipts Beat Spin. I put the diaper bag on a hook by the door like a fire extinguisher for gossip. The second phone sulked inside, locked behind a wallpaper that said, breathe. I breathed. The wallpaper remained a liar. I texted 2 contractors I still trusted. Heads up, you may get questions. Answer truthfully. Say nothing clever. They responded with thumbs up emojis, the international symbol for I will absolutely overshare. I sent them a script consisting entirely of timestamps and short nouns. Her calendar chimed from the counter like a sitcom cue. Gala AV check. I looked at the bear. Bow tie? He blinked twice. Partner attire confirmed. Time for the investor dry run. I practiced the line in the bathroom mirror over the sound of a baby mobile that played whales who believed in accountability. I'm not asking for outcome. I'm asking for process. Then I smiled exactly 1 tooth. Engineers shouldn't show too many teeth. It reads as malware. The replies to my memo started landing like soft anvils. Understood. We'll exercise audit rights post-keynote. Surrender of devices requested. One added, appreciate your professionalism. I mouthed, my auditor is a teddy bear. and the ceiling stared back like God had seen worse. I drafted a second wave of preservation notices in case anybody got cute. Same librarian tone, slightly less mercy. Failure to preserve may result in sanctions. I pictured sanctions as a cartoon mallet bonking a co-working neon sign. It helped. I realized my house had gone quiet in that way, where appliances hold their breath. Even the fridge hummed like a courtroom air conditioner. I walked the rooms, palming doorknobs, checking the little red dots of cameras, then lingered in the nursery doorway. Our daughter slept aggressively, as if paid by the hour. The bear sat upright, employee of the month, led soft as a vow. "Okay," I whispered. "No scenes. Only receipts." That was the rule the lawyer in my head wrote on the chalkboard. Scenes get headlines. Receipts get refunds. I set 3 alarms labeled blocks, letters, salad. When they went off, I'd earned a bedtime. I hit the smart speaker. "Good night, house," it answered in its calm, slightly judgmental voice. "Balance is steady, holds in place. Last transfer $1 to Glow Ridge." The crib sighed. The bear blinked twice. Somewhere downtown, a Gala playlist cued the wrong kind of drum roll. I turned off the nursery light and let the quiet put its stamp on everything. The tape reels, Teddy's greatest hits. I treated the nursery like a studio and the Teddy like a petty producer. Step 1. Compile the mixtape. I sat cross-legged on the carpet, cold drive plugged in, and built a timeline called Night Night Venture Deluxe Edition. Track 1 opened like a true crime podcast for toddlers. A soft lullaby, our daughter's sleepy huff. Then my wife whispering, "Failover nodes, blue-green cutover, 2 million runway." The bear's compressor made her sound like she'd rehearsed it in a Bloomberg sauna. I added a title card in my head, ASMR for fraud. Track 2 was the jaw-dropper. Nursery is the perfect war room. "Ma'am, this room contains a whale mobile and 3 unlicensed binkies." I clipped the line, looped it gently under Twinkle Twinkle, and let the absurdity marinate. The LED blinked like applause. Track 3, the CISO name drop. She purrs my client's CISO, first and last, then adds, "He'll jump when the bonus hits." I hit pause and stared at the crib, which was suddenly full of subpoenas and footy pajamas. I trimmed the audio to the exact syllable where my career flinched and labeled it, "Please say you didn't." Then came the villain monologue I didn't know I owned. "We'll replace him in 2 quarters. Replace who exactly? Your husband?" The bear made a tiny fan noise like a gasp. I boosted the gain and added the softest diaper rustle for pathos. The theater kid in me saluted. The spouse in me swallowed drywall. I dropped in the Canary cameo like a Marvel post-credits wink. The unique punctuation line, the on dash I'd planted in a policy doc, rolled through her demo patter with confidence she borrowed from my insomnia. I matched it to my original file, overlaid waveforms like a ghost handshake, and stamped it, pattern persistence, the remix. Between tracks, I built bumpers. Mic scuffs, crib creaks, that adorable baby snuffle that sounds like a pastry giving up. All there, like the house was narrating a syllabus. Every 30 seconds I asked my internal producer, would they keep watching? If the answer was maybe, I threw in a reversal. Soft coo, hard claim. Little giggle, big lie. It was evil karaoke. The mixdown was petty art. I EQ'd her provenance to make it ring like a bell you'd ring in court. I trimmed breaths so she sounded unhurried, competent, doomed. I set levels, so my daughter's tiny sigh landed right before the words, "We're clean on IP," the acoustic equivalent of a perjury buzzer. The bear, who once proudly recited colors, was now a mastering engineer with ethics. I structured it like a 6-minute investor cautionary tale. Opener, war room, plus the lullaby. Rising action, architecture stolen under bedtime. Midpoint, turn, CISO name drop, complete with the clack of a mobile arm bonking a felt star. Crisis, replace him in 2 quarters, doubled with a crib cam click. Proof, the canary sentence, my punctuation in her mouth, AB'd against my original. Finale, a quiet lull, then her soft, professional, "We've never missed," which, in context, sounds like, "We've never met a boundary we couldn't cosplay." I added lower thirds in my head, timestamps, file hashes, IP origins. No spice, all receipts. If this reel had legs, they were in sensible shoes. But I wanted one laugh, too. I pulled a 5-second stinger where our daughter babbles bear right after my wife says, "Keep it discreet." I mean, Your Honor. For the record, I did not touch content. No Frankensteining. Just edit points and crossfades, like wiping fingerprints off a glass before you hand it to a judge. I exported 2 versions, Boardroom and Therapist. Same files, different intros. Boardroom started with the canary line and a polite timestamp sting. Therapist began with the lullaby because my coping skills are rhythm-based. I named the master Night Night Venture Final for Real because growth is incremental. I wrote the checksum on a sticky note, tucked it under the bear's paw like a sworn statement, and pictured him stamping it with a pudgy rubber paw that says approved. Then I rehearsed the handoff in my kitchen like a man auditioning for the role of reasonable. Press play. Listen to 6 minutes. If you don't hear audit rights, I'll eat this baby spoon. My reflection looked like a raccoon in compliance cosplay. Good enough. I considered adding a montage, then remembered montages are for people who haven't already won on timestamps. Instead, I wrote a 1-sentence preface for the reel. What you're about to hear is bedtime, but for money. I giggled like a villain and drank half a glass of water like a hero. Last step, a title card for me. I slid a thumb drive into a little case and labeled it in block letters, Teddy's Greatest Hits. Under it, smaller, Lullabies and Liability. Petty? Yes. Surprising? No. Do I regret it? Only the font. I put the drive in my pocket, patted the bear on his soft, treacherous head, and whispered, "You mixed a banger, buddy." He blinked twice. Producer credit secured. Investor audit trigger. I made the courtesy, calls like a dad, confirming soccer snacks. Except the snacks were receipts, and the kids were men named Trent, with audit clauses tattooed on their souls. "I'm sending a short reel," I said, calm like a bedtime story. No conclusions. Provenance only. Use your rights. They love rights. It's fetch for board members. Email subject line. Portfolio risk. IP UT compliance. Audio evidence attached. Attachments. Teddy's Greatest Hits. The Canary Ladder PDF. And a 1-pager with bullet points so dry a cactus would ask for lotion. I hit send and ate a cucumber like it owed me money. They wrote back fast. Capital letters in a whisper, received. One added, "Is the bear real?" I replied, "Unfortunately, yes." We hopped on a call. I pressed play. On their end, silence with eyebrows. War room in the nursery line lands, and I hear someone choke on a LaCroix. The CISO name drop hits, and the lawyer coughs like 1,000 NDAs just learned to walk. The canary sentence rolls through, and the ops lead mutters, "Oh no, that's a punctuation fingerprint. I want that on a t-shirt." I keep my voice courtroom beige. Clause origin, my file. Duplicate, her deck. Pattern persistence, visible across decks, contracts, and logs. I highlight the hashes like they're rescue dogs. I'm not asking for outcome, only process. Understood, Trent says. Absolutely name Trent. Will exercise audit rights post-keynote. Device surrender requested. Interim funding hold until imaging. Copy, I say, pretending I don't have a Teddy mixing lullaby stuck in my head. I send the formal memo, 3 exhibits, no adjectives. They respond with calendar invites that smell like consequences. Post-keynote huddle. Ops review. Device custody logistics. One subject line is just surrender, which is a bold email to send at 8:11 a.m. At home, I keep it bland. Salad, water, face of a man who pronounces quinoa correctly on the first try. She floats in, breezy, a glitter comet of ambition. Gala tomorrow, big day, she sings. I nod. Crouton? She kisses my cheek like a tip you leave for average service. That night, I rehearse the double handshake. No public humiliation, no hero capes. Just grown-ups in a quiet room. A thumb drive labeled lullabies and liability, and a signature on an audit form. I practice saying provenance 3 times without smirking. I fail twice. Morning. My phone buzzes with the kind of email you print and frame in a courtroom montage. Investors to her. Per Section 9, surrender devices for imaging post-keynote. Hold in place. To me, appreciate your professionalism. Please do not engage further. My professionalism is a stuffed animal with a compressor. But sure, I text my lawyer, "We good?" He replies, "No scenes." Lawyer haikus are powerful. At lunch, I build one more buffer. I resend preservation letters with read receipts that ping like microwave beeps. Her LLC, read. Rival, read. Hosting, read. Co-working front desk, politely confused, also read. I imagine a receptionist named Marla saying, "Do we preserve the ficus too?" I forward the reel to a second investor who once asked me to define blue-green deployment at a steakhouse. I include a timestamp map. Listen at 119, 247, 331. He replies, "Good God." I reply, "Bear God." Then comes the tiny gift. A board liaison emails me, "One clarification, is the audio contemporaneous?" I send hash logs, timestamps, router spikes, the nursery smart switch cycles, 3 independent meters singing harmony. I label it the choir. He replies, "Noted." I frame noted in my heart. Back at the house, I do one last walkthrough like I'm about to Airbnb my integrity. Router, locked. Smart plugs, sanctified. Speaker routine, good night house. It recites balances in its hospice nurse voice. The bear blinks twice, which now reads like a notary stamp. On her Instagram story, she posts a boomerang of lanyards with "Integrity builds trust" overlaid in a font that has never met provenance. I put my phone face down before my soul learns to do parkour. One more call, because I am, against my will, thorough. I ring an independent ops counsel I trust, the human version of a metal detector. "You heard the reel?" I ask. "I did," she says, dry as Nevada. "This is a device custody problem with a lullaby soundtrack. I want that on a mug." "Any advice?" I ask. "Stay boring," she says. "Let adults in suits do the shouting in their heads." Deal. I print the memos, stack the exhibits, tuck Teddy's greatest hits into a little case, and place everything in a neutral tote that does not say Daddy's Revenge. I look at the bear. "You ready?" He blinks twice. Partner level. Yes. Across town, a keynote clock counts down. In my pocket, a thumb drive warms gently. In her inbox, a request for device surrender stretches its legs. And in the middle of it, a dad with a salad and a snitch bear points at process like a crossing guard for consequences. Gala day chaos. Gala morning arrived dressed like a LinkedIn post, overconfident, moisturized, and a little delusional. I ironed a shirt like a man auditioning for competence, slipped Teddy's greatest hits into a nondescript case, and told the bear, "We're clocking in." He blinked twice, which in auditor means billable. Her stories were already up. Lanyards, uplights, a boomerang of a bar sign that said "Integrity tastes like citrus." Sure, if citrus could perjure itself. I ordered a rideshare because symbolism. I wasn't driving this. Process was. The driver asked if I was headed to a wedding. "Kind of," I said, between a device and a custody request. At the venue, AV was in full cardio. I'd quietly twin-booked their crew 15 minutes away. A harmless friction move with the spiritual objective of maximum stress, not sabotage. Logistics with opinions. The coordinator looked like a man who had just hugged 2 calendars at once. He kept saying, "Love that for us," which is industry for, "I know which of you will cry first." She floated past in a blazer with angles you could slice budgets on, surrounded by assistants with clipboards and hope. "You made it," she said, practicing warmth like a TED Talk. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, and mentally added for deposition purposes. Her pre-show routine involved posting quotes about integrity, gratitude, and legacy wealth. The comments were a soup of fire emojis and "proud of you" from people who mistake fonts for facts. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed with adults. Investor ops, post-keynote huddle confirmed. Device custody window, 15 minutes. Copy Trent. Daddy loves a calendar. Backstage, I did a tiny petty thing that looked like a stretch. I adjusted a lectern 2 inches left. If you know, you know. She likes her mark dead center. I like invoices paid on time. A tech asked if I needed anything. "Just an auditor with fur," I said. He nodded like he'd heard worse. House lights dipped. Walk-in track. Synth optimism. She took the stage to applause sized medium-large. Slide 1. The silhouette of progress. Slide 2. the blur of a client logo that, under different lighting, would spell my name. She hit her pacing like a metronome wearing heels. "We built this from scratch," she beamed. The teddy bear in my pocket did a micro scream. At minute 6, a text landed like a gavel. Investor liaison to her. For Section 9, surrender devices for imaging post-keynote. I watched the tiny preview banner flicker across her confidence. She barely blinked. Professionals absorb hits like memory foam. Slide 12. Compliance safeguards. There was my canary punctuation, strutting down a runway it didn't pay for. She said provenance, like she rented it. In the third row, a lawyer tilted their head the way owls do when they spot mice. My stomach produced a modest high five. Then came the demo patter. She said unit economics. The mobile spun its little whales, and somewhere in the room, a relationship expired quietly. She closed early by 45 seconds. A tiny error that smells like adrenaline, and emails being composed off stage. Applause. Not thunder. A polite weather event. Slack lit up across the ops table like a crime tree. Anyone know what this is? Device what now? Ops huddle. 5. The AV coordinator materialized beside me. Resolved, I said. We good on the second room? He whispered. He exhaled like he'd swallowed a deflating balloon. She stepped off stage into a corridor full of people wearing badges and intentions. I arrived with counsel and a tote labeled in my heart, not a scene. Great job, I said. Neutral as drywall. Quick room, the liaison added, neutral as a warranty. She smiled the way you smile when you're choosing your next narrative. Of course. We met in a quiet space with water bottles that judged you. Investor counsel laid out a short agenda like a picnic. Device surrender per agreement, temporary hold-on funds, immediate imaging logistics, all wrapped in please and thank you. I placed Teddy's greatest hits on the table like a polite grenade. 6 minutes? I said. Bedtime, but for money. Someone smirked, not me. She tried the first door. This is retaliation. Counsel blinked like a cat. This is audit. She pivoted. Our counsel will send sanitized exports. Ops said, forensic imaging, chain of custody, no exports. She threw a look at me that could crisp bacon. I looked at a wall like I'd never met either of them. Her phone vibrated face down. The banner flashed. We still on? From a flex emoji. She slid the device under a folder with the grace of a magician sawing her own show in half. Counsel slid a custody acknowledgement forward, tone still spa-soothing. Sign here to confirm transfer, scope to relevant materials only. She held the pen like it was a live eel, then set it down like it had insulted her shoes. Fine, she said. But I want this on the record. Everything's on the record, I said, and Teddy's LED blinked in agreement from my pocket like a tiny red witness. A funding hold email chimed in the background, gentle as doom. AV needed their balance. The venue wanted their balance. The caterer wanted to be respected in these trying times. Her Slack thread sprouted question marks like weeds. Out on the floor, an MC vamped through raffle tickets and dreams. She finally wrote her name, each letter a surrender with eyebrows. She opened her bag, lifted the laptop like a baby she did not trust the room with, and set it down where adults keep promises. The phone followed, face up by accident, screen lighting with a message that read, "Call me now." Counsel slid both into evidence sleeves that looked like Ziplocs for expensive shame. Next steps, Ops said cheerfully, we'll coordinate return after imaging. She nodded without moving her neck. And a reminder, investor rep added, please retain all materials. Preservation letters already sent. She stared at him like he'd announced snow in July. I stood, gathered my tote, adjusted my perfectly average tie, and looked at her for 2 seconds too long. Good keynote, I said. She gave me a smile I didn't recognize. Then another I did, the one she uses when a script runs out. Outside, the Gala's uplights glowed earnest blue. Inside my pocket, the bear blinked twice. Invoice sent. The meeting. Receipts versus spin. We sat in a glass box designed by people who love transparency and fear acoustics. Investor counsel folded her hands with the serenity of a spa menu. The ops rep arranged pins like he was deciding which one would end a dynasty. I set Teddy's greatest hits on the table like a polite casserole, and kept my face set to mid-level manager who enjoys binders. She opened first, smooth as a garnish. We collaborated. He's controlling. This is retaliation. Voice honeyed, vowels ironed. If Lies had a Pilates class, she was an instructor. Counsel didn't blink. Who authored this clause? She slid a printout forward. There, faint but visible, my canary punctuation did a little runway turn. I tapped my copy. Origin, my policy doc. See the on dash masquerading as a hyphen? She doesn't know it, but that's my dental record. She laughed a receipt printer laugh. Standard language. Ops rep leaned in. Why does your standard language contain precise spacing anomalies that repeat across your deck, a contract draft, and the log of a shared template you opened at 1:07 a.m.? Door 2. He'd rehearsed that line in a mirror and loved how it landed. We consulted broadly. My team synthesized best practices. Cool, I said, neutral. Except here's my best practice wearing your blazer. I passed a side-by-side diff. My comment bubble moved 2 PKs left, waved like a captured flag. Lowercase rage, uppercase evidence. Counsel paged calmly. These NDAs. Tap. Fonts don't match. Metadata shows edits post-signature. Contractor affidavit confirms he did not sign. We'll need originals. She pivoted. My HR vendor prepared those. And your HR vendor coincidentally used my clause order, Oxford commas, and the weird hyphenation I invented during a sinus infection? I smiled like a bad Yelp review. Wild. Her jaw flexed like a kegel. This is absurd. We built from scratch. Ops rep, kind and lethal. We don't adjudicate origin stories. We exercise rights. He slid the custody form like a coaster. Laptop and phone acknowledged. Forensic imaging preserves chain of custody. She stared at the form like it keyed her car. You can't rummage through my personal photos. Counsel stayed spa serene. Scope is restricted to relevant materials. Your agreement provides audit rights upon suspicion of breach. She let agreement hang in the air like a smoke detector you can't reach. My wife shot me a look that could strip wallpaper. I found deep meaning in the thermostat. Let's anchor, Counsel said, gently lethal. Please walk us through. Nursery is the perfect war room. She pressed play. Lullaby, soft crib hiss. Then the line, clean, confident, career-ending. The room inhaled in unison like a bad choir. Taken out of context, she said, fast. Full context attached, I said, oatmeal with a switchblade, plus the canary line that originates in my file. Ops rep pointed at the time code, and the CISO name, first and last, was public, she said. From my deck, I said, sliding the slide with her logo perched on my sentence like it paid rent. Counsel traced the punctuation. Fingerprint preserved. She switched to pathos. He's weaponizing our home life. We had a difficult quarter. He was distant. Counsel interrupted softly. We're here for provenance and device custody. Put this woman on currency. Rival advisor cameo time. Ops rep held up the cap table like a placemat for hubris. Advisor receives 1.25% and accelerated options contingent on introductions to the decision maker at Client C, whose logo appears blurred in your keynote. She attempted a shrug and missed. Advisors advise. Advisors also implicate, I offered, still. Oatmeal. Preservation letters sent. Everyone gets to remember everything. Enough, she snapped, then resanded her voice. If there were overlaps, it's because we shared a life. He's making commas into crimes. Irrelevant, Counsel said. Device custody today. Interim funding hold remains until imaging confirms. The pen clicked like a tiny guillotine. Her phone buzzed face up. Banner from Flex emoji. You good? Ops rep photographed it with the weariness of a dentist photographing a gummy bear in a molar. Please silence external communications. We're documenting. She exhaled like a tea kettle. Fine, take the laptop. We'll clear this in an hour. She signed with spite italics. The pen squeaked. Somewhere, Karma circled a parking spot. Phone as well, Counsel added. We'll scope notifications in C2. She slid it over like it asked for alimony. Ops rep bagged both devices in sleeves built for volcanoes and divorces. Next, Counsel said, the phrase replace him in 2 quarters. Play, soft kuo, soft lie. She smiled a sharp little smile. Replace mint refactor. We refactor systems. And by systems, you mean husband, I said, holding up a printout. Noted. Ops rep ignored us like a teacher ignoring swordplay. Audit team will arrive in 40 minutes. Please remain available. One thing, I said, gathering my tote. I request 0 outcomes and maximum process. Parking ticket tone, cucumber aftertaste. Counsel nodded. Appreciated. She looked at me like she was memorizing for a reconstruction sketch. You think you've won? I shrugged. I think a teddy bear mixed your keynote. Outside, applause swelled for a raffle basket named Legacy. Inside, her phone pinged with administrative hold active. Ops rep wrote the time. Counsel capped her pen with the finality of a door clicking shut. I stood, adjusted a lectern by 2 inches to feel alive, and said, "We're done pretending." Then I put my hand on the tote, felt the squared corners of receipts through canvas, and let adults in suits count to 10. Funding freeze and fallout. The email hit like a polite asteroid. Administrative hold pending imaging. No exclamation points, no adjectives. Just a vacuum that sucked the confetti out of the room. Somewhere down the hall, a mic squealed. Somewhere in my chest, a tiny accountant high-fived a teddy bear. Operationally, it was instant winter. The venue invoice woke up and chose cardio. The AV crew discovered overtime had feelings. Catering wanted to feel seen. Her Slack sprouted question marks like a teenager's text thread. The rival advisor DM'd her every 5 minutes with, "Call me," which is advisor for, "I can't swim, throw me a yacht." I watched from the lobby plant like a raccoon with a briefcase. Investor Ops walked past carrying a laptop and an evidence sleeve, Ziploc for executives. The Ops rep nodded at me the way pilots nod at turbulence, respectfully inevitable. My phone buzzed, the bank confirming dual off on the HELOC. Bless. Another buzz. The smart speaker, unprompted, whispering, "Last transfer $1 to Glow Ridge," through my pocket like a bedtime roast. I muted it before it tried stand up. By afternoon, the gala had the energy of a birthday party where the clown got subpoenaed. She posted a single black and white story, hands clasped, chin lifted, text overlay, "Trust the process." My process is a stuffed animal with a compressor, but absolutely. Vendors smelled hold and formed a conga line. Friendly reminder, urgent reminder, final reminder, each more final than the last. I forwarded them to Investor Ops with the subject line, "Housekeeping." Adults love housekeeping. It sounds like progress wearing slippers. The rival advisor pivoted to LinkedIn damage control, untagging himself from success like it was a rash. He switched his headline from strategic advisor to innovators to fractional wisdom. I screenshotted the gap and named it AIR. Her text came at dusk, lowercase and breathless. "We can fix this. Merge our IP. We tell them it's joint." I stared at it until grammar broke. Merge our IP sounded like marry your toothbrush. I replied with the precision of a parking meter. No. Device custody. Cooperation. No contact with my clients. Green bubble. Delivered. Teddy blinked inside my jacket like a tiny gavel. I filed an injunction as dessert. Protect assets. Restrict solicitation. Freeze any post-hold shenanigans. The clerk stamped it with the authority of a librarian who knows where you live. I walked out with a document that read like a breakup letter to improvisation. Back home, the house congratulated me by being very loud about being quiet. The fridge hummed a hymn. The router blinked in 4/4 time. I ran Goodnight House, and the speaker read balances like a lullaby for auditors. Holds in place. Teddy blinked twice. We sleep. Morning, new tone. Investor counsel. Formal breach notice queued. Cooperation may mitigate. Mitigate, a word that wears khakis. I forwarded it to my attorney with a single period. RIA dialect for proceed. He called to draft the grown-up email. Subject, cooperation logistics. Body, imaging window, return schedule, minimal adjectives. Her lawyer surfaced from a bubble bath of invoices. Privacy concerns, harassment, undue pressure, the holy trinity of oh no. My attorney replied with receipts stapled to receipts. Scope, chain of custody, your client signed Section 9. Somewhere, a compliance officer did finger guns. Meanwhile, the venue escalated to collections department, which is just Tim with a stern template. I called Tim and paid my portion for our kids' sanity, cash register morality. Tim said, "Appreciate you." I said, "Please never talk to me again." Contractors pinged me like popcorn. She promised a retainer. What do I do? Answer truthfully. Send nothing. Drink water. One sent a screenshot of her HR alias emailing from a domain 1 character off mine. I dragged it into Exhibit Q and patted my own head like a strange dog. The rival advisor posted a lessons learned thread that accidentally confessed to being present at 12 bad ideas. Comments. Off. I printed it on recycled paper out of spite. Then the wave hit her feed. No recap, no carousel, no humble brag. Just a square with processing and a prayer hands emoji. That's crisis communications for hold please. My salad tasted like electrolytes in quiet triumph. She called at midnight. I let it ring into the tin can of voicemail. "This is spiraling. You don't have to ruin me," she said, voice shaking like a sponsored shake weight. I forwarded the audio to counsel with the subject late night creativity and put my phone face down on a coaster named Boundary. By noon the next day, Investor Ops scheduled imaging pickup. The courier arrived with a Pelican case that looked capable of transporting dinosaur eggs. They logged serials, wrote times, and thanked me like I'd hosted a tasteful brunch. My bear watched from the mantel wearing the kind of expression plush can manage, contented subpoena. State Board Auto replied, "Preliminary inquiry opened." Bless the bureaucrats who make Tuesdays heavy. I filed the case number under endings. My attorney emailed the rival advisor a preservation reminder with an attachment labeled, "Don't be cute PDF." Finally, she texted again. "Last offer. We merge. We message. We survive." I stared at the crib camera thumbnail where our daughter napped like a mailed fist. "No," I typed. "We audit." Then I put the phone away and microwaved leftovers like a man who respects radiation and procedure. The freeze didn't roar. It clicked. Doors, one by one. And in the spaces between clicks, my house learned a new word and sang it quietly. Enough. The assignment and exit. Settlement day looked like a minimalist brunch, flavorless, expensive, and necessary for survival. We met in a room that smelled like contracts and printer toner. Her lawyer arrived with a smile that charged by the minute. Mine arrived with a binder that could stop a mid-sized truck. Investor counsel took the far chair and radiated calendar invite with teeth. The document stack was short and mean. Assignment of rights, device surrender acknowledgement, no contact with clients or contractors, and my personal favorite, derivatives clause. She read it once, twice, then squinted like the font owed her money. "What exactly do you mean by derivatives?" she asked, voice smooth as a sponsorship. "Anything built with my materials," I said, pleasant as quinoa. "Slides, decks, code, notes, your Pinterest board if it started quoting my style guide," Investor counsel added, including tools trained on his assets. Her eyes did math they did not enjoy. She tried to shrink the word. "So, the core?" My lawyer slid a tab page forward, color-coded like a rainbow of consequences. "So, everything." She dabbed at her lip gloss like it could dissolve clauses. "This is punitive." "This is provenance," I said, and the teddy bear in my pocket blinked like a notarized yes. She moved to the next page and encountered the sentence that turns entrepreneurs into origami cranes. "Assign all right title and interest in any work product." She stopped. "You can't take my voice." "Keep the voice," I said. "Return the lines." Investor counsel scribbled something that looked like clean exit and smelled like fewer headlines. Phone surrender happened like a custody exchange for a golden retriever who'd learned to text. She passed it over, then remembered the watch. "Is that a device?" Ops nodded, kind, relentless. Into the bag it went, a silent little perjury Fitbit. No contact clause. She wanted reasonable exceptions. "What are those?" I asked. "Replying to inbound from his clients," she said. "So, contact?" I said. We kept it crisp. No means no, even to, "Hey, quick question." She signed, the pen making a sound like a seatbelt click. Then the derivatives standoff. She circled it with the pen like she could make it dizzy, even if it's new. "If it learned from me," I said, "it's coming home with Dad." My lawyer did not high-five me, but the energy was there. Investor counsel gently added, "This protects your investors too." She sighed with the dignity of a discontinued candle. Her lawyer asked for a mercy comma. Mine deleted it with the grace of a guillotine. We all agreed to cooperate with the audit team. Imaging scope to relevant materials, chain of custody maintained like a museum tour for bad decisions. I initialed the margins like a man who writes his name on history and then files it. She hesitated at the end, fingertip on the signature line like maybe a trapdoor would open and catch her gently. "You're enjoying this," she said. "I'm efficient," I said. "Joy is for weekends and waffles." She executed the assignment. Investor counsel executed the witness line. Somewhere, a server started humming the national anthem of Restore from Backup. Operations paused like a sitcom. Slack dimmed user by user, a building's lights going out from the top floor down. The rival advisor updated his bio to independent, which is LinkedIn for I walk dogs now. The venue emailed balance resolved because I paid my half like a person who still wanted a city to let him live in it. I walked the keys to the console, condo key, spare car fob, access card with a motivational quote that had aged like milk. She placed hers beside mine with 2 fingers, as if they might bite. "Can I at least come back for my stuff?" "One change of clothes," I said. "Bring your lawyer a box of tissues." We stepped to the door. The bear blinked from my jacket pocket like a tiny HR rep who also snacks. She lingered in the doorway, 1 foot in our life, 1 in the spreadsheet. "Do you hate me?" she asked. "I have a bedtime routine," I said. "It's locks, letters, and sleep." She nodded like a person who'd finally met a wall. On her way out, she glanced at the crib camera on the hallway shelf, at the tiny whales on the mobile that had somehow filed an amicus brief. "You weaponized our nursery," she said. "You built a secret office in it," I said. "I hired staff." The bear blinked twice. Final stamp. Door closed. "Good night, house." Balance is steady. Holds in place. Assignments executed. Derivatives collected like toys at cleanup time. I set the keys in an envelope, labeled it Exit, and slid it into a drawer with the quiet satisfaction of a man who finally taught his life to file. Aftermath. Locks that hold. After the signatures, the house felt like a laptop that finally finished an update. I rotated every key like I was DJing a chastity belt. Router creds? New. Admin panel? Fort Knox with a side of sarcasm. I retired the guest network with a nice fruit basket and a strongly worded goodbye. The toaster looked nervous. Good. I rebuilt access charts like Lego for anxious adults. Who can touch what? For how long? With what thumb? My hardware keys now live on my keychain next to a tiny plastic whale who believes in governance. Dual auth everywhere. If my fridge wants ice, it's entering a code. Smart speaker routines graduated from bedtime roast to bedtime comfort. "Good night, house," I said, and it replied, "Balance is steady, holds in place," in that calm voice that sounds like an accountant petting a greyhound. The bear blinked twice from the mantle, which is plush for "Carry on, citizen." The team rallied with the energy of people who prefer shipping to gossip. We shipped small wins. A bug fix with a celebratory emoji nobody will understand in 10 years. A client org chart that finally made sense. A QOL tweak that made our app feel like a kind waiter. The runway held. I slept like a man whose pillows pay their taxes. Therapy started with me apologizing to a stuffed animal in absentia. "I assigned him work," I told my therapist. She nodded like, "Sir, Mom's apologized to thermostats. You're fine." We walked loops in a city that smells like coffee and delayed decisions. She said boundaries. I said locks. We high-fived a lamppost. Walks became ritual. Phone in airplane mode, spine at a responsible angle, me narrating to my shoes. I'd pass baby stores with whale mobiles in the window and salute like a veteran of the Great Compliance War. If you saw a grown man high-fiving a window display, mind your business. He's processed. I wrote boring victories on sticky notes. Refund issued. Contract renewed. Fire alarms tested. If a fire started, honestly, I'd probably invoice it. I set Fridays aside for maintenance. Alerts tuned, logs pruned, a quick audit of my own melodrama. The bear got a dusting. He's union now. The kitchen grew peaceful. Plates stopped sounding like subpoenas. Yogurt tasted like closure with granola. I bought a plant with low expectations and told it, you, me, hydration, the basics. When it drooped, I didn't assume betrayal. I added water. Growth mindset, but with leaves. People asked if I was dating. I said, sure, spreadsheets. And we all laughed until it became true. On Sundays, I'd open a cash flow sheet that looked pleasantly bored with me. No spikes, no cliffs, just slow incline, like a hiking trail for introverts. That's romance they never advertise. I learned to let silence sit in rooms. Not suspicious silence, civilized silence, where no one is pitching anyone. Our daughter snored like a tiny union steward. I read her board books in a voice that says sentences don't have to sell. She grasped my finger like a handcuff made of gratitude. Every once in a while, the old urge to narrate the injustice would knock. I'd point it toward a checklist. Go fix a permission. Go clean a log. Go oil the door that squeaks like a conspiracy. The urge sits after a while. It learns to fetch. At night, I stand in the nursery doorway, arms folded, doing that dad lean like I invented walls. The mobile whales spin, unbothered by case law. The bear sits still, LED soft as a truce. Locks hold. Valves close. The house hums the song of things that are finally allowed to be boring. And that's the thing. Boring is freedom in sweatpants. It's a spreadsheet that doesn't try to kiss you. It's a router that blinks like a metronome because nothing is plotting. It's a bedtime routine that ends with sleep, not consequences. My life's not flashy. It's sealed. I can live with seal. The nursery light clicks off. The bear's LED winks twice. The laptop lid lowers. The door latch settles. Quiet house, honest air, locks that hold. If that made your eyebrows do cardio, subscribe. Next up, the sequel none of us asked for. What happens when the rival advisor tries a rebrand and the canaries sing again? Drop your wildest smart object snitched on me stories in the comments. I'm building a museum. And yes, I'll read them at 2 a.m. with yogurt under a lamp that requires two-factor. Funding freeze and fallout. The email hit like a polite asteroid. Administrative hold pending imaging. No exclamation points, no adjectives, just a vacuum that sucked the confetti out of the room. Somewhere down the hall, a mic squealed. Somewhere in my chest, a tiny accountant high-fived a teddy bear. Operationally, it was instant winter. The venue invoice woke up and chose cardio. The AV crew discovered overtime had feelings. Catering wanted to feel seen. Her Slack sprouted question marks like a teenager's text thread. The rival advisor DM'd her every 5 minutes with "call me," which is advisor for "I can't swim, throw me a yacht." I watched from the lobby plant like a raccoon with a briefcase. Investor Ops walked past carrying a laptop and an evidence sleeve, Ziploc for executives. The ops rep nodded at me the way pilots nod at turbulence, respectfully inevitable. My phone buzzed, the bank confirming dual auth on the HELOC. Bless. Another buzz. The smart speaker, unprompted, whispering, "Last transfer $1 to Glow Ridge" through my pocket like a bedtime roast. I muted it before it tried stand up. By afternoon, the Gala had the energy of a birthday party where the clown got subpoenaed. She posted a single black and white story. Hands clasped, chin lifted, text overlay. Trust the process. My process is a stuffed animal with a compressor, but absolutely. Vendors smelled hold and formed a conga line. Friendly reminder, urgent reminder, final reminder, each more final than the last. I forwarded them to Investor Ops with the subject line, housekeeping. Adults love housekeeping. It sounds like progress wearing slippers. The rival advisor pivoted to LinkedIn damage control, untagging himself from success like it was a rash. He switched his headline from strategic advisor to innovators to fractional wisdom. I screenshotted the gap and named it AIR. Her text came at dusk, lowercase and breathless. "We can fix this. Merge our IP. We tell them it's joint." I stared at it until grammar broke. Merge our IP sounded like "marry your toothbrush." I replied with the precision of a parking meter. "No. Device custody. Cooperation. No contact with my clients." Green bubble. Delivered. Teddy blinked inside my jacket like a tiny gavel. I filed an injunction as dessert. Protect assets, restrict solicitation, freeze any post-hold shenanigans. The clerk stamped it with the authority of a librarian who knows where you live. I walked out with a document that read like a breakup letter to improvisation. Back home, the house congratulated me by being very loud about being quiet. The fridge hummed a hymn. The router blinked in 4/4 time. I ran Goodnight House, and the speaker read balances like a lullaby for auditors. Holds in place. Teddy blinked twice. We sleep. Morning, new tone. Investor counsel. Formal breach notice queued. Cooperation may mitigate. Mitigate. A word that wears khakis. I forwarded it to my attorney with a single period. RIA dialect for proceed. He called to draft the grown-up email. Subject: cooperation logistics. Body: imaging window, return schedule, minimal adjectives. Her lawyer surfaced from a bubble bath of invoices. Privacy concerns, harassment, undue pressure, the holy trinity of oh no. My attorney replied with receipts stapled to receipts. Scope: chain of custody. Your client signed Section 9. Somewhere, a compliance officer did finger guns. Meanwhile, the venue escalated to collections department, which is just Tim with a stern template. I called Tim and paid my portion for our kids' sanity, cash register morality. Tim said, "Appreciate you." I said, "Please never talk to me again." Contractors pinged me like popcorn. She promised a retainer. What do I do? Answer truthfully. Send nothing. Drink water. One sent a screenshot of her HR alias emailing from a domain one character off mine. I dragged it into Exhibit Q and patted my own head like a strange dog. The rival advisor posted a lessons learned thread that accidentally confessed to being present at 12 bad ideas. Comments: off. I printed it on recycled paper out of spite. Then the wave hit her feed. No recap, no carousel, no humble brag. Just a square with processing and a prayer hands emoji. That's crisis communications for hold, please. My salad tasted like electrolytes in quiet triumph. She called at midnight. I let it ring into the tin can of voicemail. This is spiraling. You don't have to ruin me, she said, voice shaking like a sponsored shake weight. I forwarded the audio to counsel with the subject late night creativity and put my phone face down on a coaster named Boundary. By noon the next day, Investor Ops scheduled imaging pickup. The courier arrived with a Pelican case that looked capable of transporting dinosaur eggs. They logged serials, wrote times, and thanked me like I'd hosted a tasteful brunch. My bear watched from the mantel wearing the kind of expression plush can manage. Contented subpoena. State Board auto replied. Preliminary inquiry opened. Bless the bureaucrats who make Tuesdays heavy. I filed the case number under endings. My attorney emailed the rival advisor a preservation reminder with an attachment labeled, "Don't be cute, PDF." Finally, she texted again. Last offer? We merge, we message, we survive. I stared at the crib camera thumbnail where our daughter napped like a mailed fist. No, I typed. We audit. Then I put the phone away and microwaved leftovers like a man who respects radiation and procedure. The freeze didn't roar. It clicked. Doors, one by one. And in the spaces between clicks, my house learned a new word and sang it quietly. Enough. The assignment and exit. Settlement day looked like a minimalist brunch. Flavorless, expensive, and necessary for survival. We met in a room that smelled like contracts and printer toner. Her lawyer arrived with a smile that charged by the minute. Mine arrived with a binder that could stop a mid-sized truck. Investor counsel took the far chair and radiated calendar invite with teeth. The document stack was short and mean. Assignment of rights, device surrender acknowledgement, no contact with clients or contractors, and my personal favorite, derivatives clause. She read it once, twice, then squinted like the font owed her money. What exactly do you mean by derivatives? She asked, voice smooth as a sponsorship. Anything built with my materials, I said, pleasant as quinoa. Slides, decks, code, notes, your Pinterest board if it started quoting my style guide. Investor counsel added, including tools trained on his assets. Her eyes did math they did not enjoy. She tried to shrink the word. So, the core? My lawyer slid a tabbed page forward, color-coded like a rainbow of consequences. So, everything. She dabbed at her lip gloss like it could dissolve clauses. This is punitive. This is provenance, I said, and the teddy bear in my pocket blinked like a notarized yes. She moved to the next page and encountered the sentence that turns entrepreneurs into origami cranes. Assign all right, title, and interest in any work product. She stopped. You can't take my voice. Keep the voice, I said. Return the lines. Investor counsel scribbled something that looked like clean exit and smelled like fewer headlines. Phone surrender happened like a custody exchange for a golden retriever who'd learned to text. She passed it over, then remembered the watch. Is that a device? Ops nodded.